In a sec, I'll just restart the announcement here. Okay,
Yes.
this is the start of the 7th Knowledge Seekers Workshop, and we have people from the Spaceship Institute and Mr. Kesh of the Kesh Foundation ready to talk to us here, and we have some very interesting topics today regarding the future of the Kesh Foundation and about the space technology and the reactors that are going on and all kinds of things. So without further ado, let's hand it over to the knowledge seekers of the Spaceship Institute.
Good day to everybody. We are greeting you from Spaceship Institute of Kesh Foundation in Italy. Marek speaking. We have worked during the last week on preparation of reactors, plasmatic reactors, to be ready for the first testing. And yesterday we have achieved preparation of 4 reactors, and we have put them to star formation. So now we have 1 central reactor in the middle and 3 reactors around it in 120 degrees separation. And yesterday it was very interesting time because we all gathered together around this place in our lab and put the reactors there in the star formation. Tried the vacuum inside of the reactors, and after this preparation we just grouped around the star formation and start something which we can call praying and sharing, expressing ourselves, so that everybody of us talked about his feeling, what this technology means for him, how he expresses himself or herself in a material way and also in spiritual way. So everybody talked in his own language to the people outside and to the God to bless us, bless our work, and to protect the technology, to bring it out for the help to the humanity, for peaceful purpose, so that everybody can benefit from this technology and share it with others. We are still at the beginning of this phase, learning all the plasma reactor technology, and we are looking forward to gain this knowledge and experience it ourselves and share it openly with you. Yesterday we had some problems with internet connection, so that's why you could not see the live stream online, only a very short part, but we have tried hardly to get it through. We hope it will happen sooner or later. And We have made also local recordings on cameras. So we will put together the material so that you can feel what happened yesterday, how deep was the start and launch of this star formation of plasmatic reactors. We just ask you to be with us and support us because we need cooperation to get this knowledge out and share also your own insights into this technology, how you view it with us as we share with you, because this way we can all get better understanding and feeling how to properly use the technology and how to develop it further. You may ask whatever you want.
Thank you, Marek. That was great introduction there. And any questions from the GoToMeeting end of things there?
Mm-hmm.
So all the reactors have now been transformed into a non-nuclear state, and that non-nuclear state is now opening up a lot more possibilities for the future of this technology. Is that what I can see here?
Yes, all the reactors are non-nuclear, non-radioactive in a way. They don't use any external radioactive material, and actually all of them, or almost all of them, use a nanolayering inside the chambers. So we have one central reactor, which is the prototype of power generator, which is made from copper and actually has 3 cores, 3 rotating cores from copper. And inside you will find copper nanolayers with very fine structure. Mr. K says that it's cloudy structure, very fine powdered structure. To build these layers, it will take longer time. I don't know exactly how long, but more than a few weeks. So you can imagine that the preparation of these structures needs patience, and as nature is patient always, we are learning to be as well, because you cannot hurry with this technology. You have to learn how to use subtle processes of nature to create conditions which are natural. So in this central reactor, you will find these cloudy nanolayered surfaces inside all of the chamber balls. This is one reactor. It is actually two motors used to rotate outer core and middle core, and there is also one core inside which has the same input as the middle core, so they are connected, but that inside smallest core is used to stabilize the plasma to create black hole condition, vortex condition of plasma inside and keep it stable. This is the central one. Around this you can find 3 other reactors. 2 of them are actually made in Iran, and one of them is half sphere shape, which you could see on the video we have published recently about these 2 Iranian reactors. So this half sphere reactor has rotating half sphere chamber inside, and at the bottom of the assembly you find some reserve tank with motor turning the inner core, and this reservoir chamber is used to feed the gases inside. Let's say we can feed hydrogen in this space, and the plasma can take whatever it needs from this reservoir. And this is actually the reactor. This design is the reactor used in spaceship. So it is designed to achieve flight conditions.
And it's also designed to achieve a magnetosphere, so magnetic gravitational shielding as well?
Yes, of course. Without magnetosphere, you cannot fly, because you always need both magnetical and gravitational, because this magnetical gives you the shielding as magnetosphere, and the gravitational gives you proper positioning in the space. And actually, the reason why we use the star formation is to get good protection during the flight, and to have also ability when one reactor, let's say, goes down due to some problem, we can use other reactors to support the spaceship functionality and keep the protection. So actually, the middle reactor can be used to make the main lift, and the 3 around it are used to control the flight direction and speed, to shape the field, magnetic field around the spaceship, and to tune it to the target destination to achieve the proper magnetic and gravitational positioning, or we can say magnetic flight. So even a combination of these 4 reactors are used to support multi-layered magnetosphere to get better protection around the spaceship, and at the same time, due to interaction between these reactors, you can produce material and energy needed on the spaceship or on the ground, because this spaceship is actually self-sustainable oasis capable of flying, but you can also use this technology on the Earth because it gives you protection, light, materials needed for different purposes. You can get food and heat and whatever you like if we properly use this interaction of the plasma between these four reactors. So actually it's not only about space traveling, but it's very useful also on Earth to help people to get better conditions for living so that we can extend or enhance our peaceful face, peace inside us, and develop our inner self to the light. And I didn't mention the last two reactors in this formation. And the third one is also a gift from Iran. Mr. Kesh brought it from Iran. It's the smaller brother of the first Iranian half-sphere reactor. This one is spherical with two cores, also made from plastic and inside covered with copper nano-layered material. And actually, instead of rotating the inner core as in his brother reactor, the inner core, which is around 7 centimeters in diameter, ball-shaped, is rotating freely just on a bolt, on a pin, sitting on a pin on one side as rotation support, and on the other side it is supported by the rotating feed-through rotating valve and pipe going out. So it can freely rotate, and it is covered from both sides, from the inner side and from the outer side, with this copper nanomaterial. And it sits inside the outer core, which is covered from inside with nano-layered copper. And this outer ball is around more than 20 centimeters in diameter and hosts the inner core. The inner core and outer core can be fed separately, but only the outer core can be rotated with the motor. And according to interaction of the two cores, of the plasmas in the two cores, the inner core will decide how to rotate in this, to find its balance in this interaction. So actually we can control it from outside by rotation changes, by changing the feeding of the reactor of those both cores, and also by interaction with other reactors around, and of course by interaction with other environment like us, our thoughts, our feelings. It all plays the role in this process. So it's not only about running reactors, but it's also about knowing how we interact with these forms, because what goes from us has some similarities with the fields created inside this star formation system. That's why when we are on the spaceship, we can interact with the spaceship fields directly, and we can also control the spaceship by our feelings and thoughts. But it's still very new, or let's say it was forgotten knowledge. Now it's again knowledge which is going to be gained to our awareness, and we all have to learn how to properly handle these fields so that they are helpful to us and to our environment. The last reactor in the setup is John's ceramic reactor. This is something genuine, let's say, because it is made in Belgium from the clay, and it is one chamber reactor, one core reactor, without any coating inside. So it's just the ceramic chamber with a motor supporting the rotation, with one feeding of the gases through rotational valve. And because it's made from ceramic, John has made a tough effort to protect us from possible breaking of the systems, because when it would go to high rotations, it could break. But we hope it will hold itself together. But to protect ourselves, we have John has added some protectional tiles around it from plastic and another layer of plexiglass around it. So it is a cube now. So you cannot see what is inside actually, but inside this protective cube you will find that ceramic core, which is around 25 centimeters in diameter. And it was prepared with love and care. And because we all gathered together yesterday, as I said, to start this process in harmonious way, we will be patient to start it carefully, to feed it this system, and to learn the most we can and share it with you. Any questions?
What are the purpose of the reactors? The center one's for lift. What's the purpose of John's ceramic reactor?
The same as the purpose of others around the central one. To keep protection with layered magnetosphere and to achieve directional field, because with only central core it's very difficult or advanced to achieve some non-spherical field shape, but to achieve directional flight we need to shape the field, magnetic field around the formation to achieve proper direction flight. So it's like amino acid formation or molecular formation. Each part has its own role, and there is always some centralizing element, which is in our case the central one, which gathers all other around and keeps the shape in good condition. So it's much easier with these reactors around to achieve the flight because we have interaction of 4 plasmatic magnetic gravitational fields between each other. And actually the structure is in some way similar to nanolayering structure, where you have particles and gaps between them. Particles radiate and receive fields, and in the gaps these fields have enough space to interact and create conditions by interaction of their magnetic rays to create proper conditions to attract the similar thing, similar fields from outside. And this interaction allows, due to interacting magnetic fields, create different materials and conditions for survival in this star formation environment called which can be sitting inside the spaceship supporting platform, which is actually the core of the spaceship.
Merrick?
Yeah,
Sorry,
Mark,
can we do a sound check, please?
yeah, the microphone might be too far in front of your mouth because we're getting some popping happening from it and so on.
Okay. So now you can ask.
Much better. Thank you.
So this is all being controlled by the GAN's brain yet, or is it being physically controlled at the moment?
No, we start without GAN's brain, but we are preparing the GAN's brain to learn how to interact with it. And at the same time, we are just now physically controlling the feeding of the reactors and the rotations. And at the same time, as I said, we expect our interaction, our fields which are going from us to interact with this formation, because everything is connected. So for now we don't use the brain, but we are planning to use it once once we know it better, because it's still very new for us.
Right, you have to understand what you're doing first, and you still have an interaction with yourselves. I just think of it as it'd be a much stronger connection with the GAN's brain. So I've seen interactions with myself with the growing the nanolayers, with the measurement aspect of it, and I can only explain it as being part of my field that's interacting with the measurement to be able to see what I see. So I understand what you're saying for sure, that we all have an interaction with it, and depending on our emotions and on our thoughts, then we will have different interactions with it.
Yes, that's right.
Hello, good morning to all. I'm Jorge. I just want to add about regarding what Marek said about the technology. We have to go deep to the essence of the knowledge. I know that you love the technical details of these kinds of things, but maybe you need to go further in order to understand the knowledge and why it's put in the spaceship programs. We all have the feeling that this technology could solve all the problems, the main problems on Earth now. So our view wants to develop, and we are very impatient to solve the problems because we have the compassion to the world, and we are not agreed that the suffering of the people and the lack of freedom that this world is running right now. So we are very impatient in this way, trying to solve the problem. But at the same time, we are running this space technology and understand the meaning of what's supposed to go to space in the terms of freedom. That's the conclusion of the situation for me of yesterday. About this was like a rare moment to think about the deep meaning of what we are doing, and in this point you have to be very patient. I know that Spanish supporters that are not in this level or technical level, they are scared about. It's not for me. This is so difficult to understand, but it's for everybody. And I think that you can change the position from the spectator to action, because this is happening. So what are you going to do with this information? You are part of the piece also. So the work of the foundation is not about us. And you have to start to think about how to create the reality we want, or and put in action now. It's not our work, it's the work of all. So
Yes, Jorge, I completely agree with that. And a lot of us are taking that to heart. And even if you don't see everybody doing things, their own experiments, I know of a lot of people, and I'm finding them every day, who are listening to this and taking that to heart to try to understand for themselves. It's all in each of us to try to understand in the way that we can, and to expand on that understanding at all times.
Yeah, I'm seeing lots of feedback through Facebook and groups and people that are trying their own experiments and getting similar or dissimilar results in creating nanomaterials and new types of reactors and so on. It's definitely catching on, let's say.
Yeah, but one thing is to produce. We have seen that producing nanomaterials is not really difficult. But I don't really understand in deep what is nanomaterials. And I have read the chapter of the book maybe 4 or 5 times, and I have an insight of the deep meaning of nanomaterials and GANS state. It's so deep that is not producing. But when you have what? Are you going to see the nanomaterials for months trying to understand what is happening? No. If you don't understand before, what's the sense of what you are doing? You know? That's the reason that I encourage you to go deeper. It's not about making things. It's about to
Right, but
understand what
a
is
lot of
behind.
people need to physically do it with their own hands to see that it is possible. Because I think that's the major hurdle that we really have to overcome, which is thinking of what is possible and what is impossible. And we've all been raised in different ways and led to believe of what's impossible in terms of the community and what's impossible in terms of life. And that's what I see it is that we've been pushed down more than being allowed to step up to the plate and understand. So the major hurdle with getting people just to do the GANs and see how easy it is, which is the easiness of creation, then they'll be able to understand that what they hold in their hands is not impossible. It is very easy and very natural.
Yeah, completely agree. But no, everybody don't have this skill to make things with his own hands. So they don't have to be fear of start thinking and trying to get this knowledge also. So because the application is so huge that you can understand at first sight. Maybe you have to have experience to produce it. It's good. You have to try several experiments and make different things, like Mr. Kesse said, adding different metals and so on. But I think this is first step. Trying to understand what we have on the table now is a work that is so complex that I understand that it's very important.
Well, if creation is easy, then it shouldn't be complex. It's just a matter of understanding it in a certain way, which would make it complex. if that makes any sense to you.
So now we are jumping from one thing to another, but it's not just following us. You have to connect and link to your previous knowledge in order to go further. That's why that's what I feel now, and it needs times to get to this point. So when you see CO2 experiment and you see a start of life in this, maybe it's more than one life to understand this. So the fact that we are jumping from CO2 experiment to reactor to GANs and so on needs more reflection in order to understand all. I tried to explain in a conversation with Armen yesterday. If you talk about beauty, for example, that is an abstract concept, you can show a painting or a sculpture or something beautiful, but you are jumping from one thing to other, but you have to go further to understand what is beauty. And that's one thing that everybody has to work for himself, you know? It's not about following us because you don't understand why we are showing a painting and a sculpture and so on. Do you understand me?
100%.
Okay. So that's what I want to share with you.
We actually discussed beauty earlier today in terms of the scalar quality and the idea of was it involved
the
there?
proportions, the perfect proportion, the golden ratio, and
Yes, the golden ratio and the idea of proportion. And the concept got brought up that if you were to take a face, the human face, and enter or overlay all, say, 1,000 human faces, then you get a composite face. And that face, when you look at it, according to the computer representations of these overlays, is sort of an angelic looking face. Guy was
absolutely
mentioning.
beautiful faces.
Absolutely beautiful. And if you do that with every race, you take the black race or yellow race and you do the 1,000 overlays of this face, you get the same basic beautiful face. So when you combine basically all human faces together, you get this composite that is incredibly beautiful because of the proportions are very mathematical, actually, the way it, the distances between the eyes and nose and so on, and we can recognize beauty inertly because it's part of our Maghreb makeup, basically. We know that field is somehow symmetrical and has a certain quality to it in a scalar way. So we were discussing that earlier anyways. Carry on.
Okay, so are you going to find beauty in ETs also? Because the first present we received here when we arrived, Mr. Keshe,
Beauty in what again? Could you say that again?
in
in
ET races,
ET races? What?
Yeah.
Extraterrestrial races.
Oh, ET
Extraterrestrial
races, extraterrestrial races. Got it. Well, yeah, that would be absolutely necessary to see the beauty in what we might normally take as ugly. What if something looked like a slug to us, but it was 10 feet tall, and we were just might be overwhelmed. But at the same time, I'm sure most of us that have thought about that sort of thing have some sort of curiosity. As long as this other life form could, have some sort of intelligence or communication aspect to it, and didn't eat us immediately, that would be fun. I think, in my mind, that would be the greatest thing, to be able to communicate with strange-looking life forms. It'd be like going out on a nightclub tour when you weren't used to that kind of thing. Go ahead.
Which is the ratio you talked about before, which is the phi ratio. And it turns out that the phi ratio is in everything on this planet, basically, and in every aspect of the universe. So what that would tell me is that even ETs would have a phi ratio of some sort. And I do believe it's that phi ratio that allows us to see the beauty inertly or instinctively. So I see it as there would be nothing as terms of ugly if you are in a peaceful and caring attitude, or that kind of attitude.
I want to add that we received the first day we came here a present from Mr. Kesh. It was a monster. We have all a monster in our room. And the purpose of this present is trying to open our mind to receive these kinds of different life forms that we are going to face in universe. So it's important to start thinking about all these kind of things that we need to learn about life and different forms of life. This is the essence.
This ties back to that workshop, just so folks know, was it 2 workshops ago, on the idea of schizophrenia, and how if we learn to tolerate someone with schizophrenia now, then that would be useful in the space situation where we might encounter life forms that we would consider to be schizophrenia type life forms from our normal, so-called normal perspective as humans. But in actuality, we need to learn to accept that as part of the natural ways of the universe.
So, engineering part of the schizophrenia talks in me. How do you see the nanomaterials? And I have some opinion about them, but how do you explain them and what they are doing?
I understand that nanomaterials is like open state of it's most near to the plasma than to matters. You know that the fact that they balance immediately with the energy that surrounds it's amazing. So you can heat and it's not hot, or they can absorb radiation, or even well, we talk later about this purpose for medical purpose. We have to go further in this part also, but it's like 3 in 1. This Sprite that is for all is something like this. We have soon guns for all. So I give the word to others. You want, Armin?
Thanks, Jorge.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello, Armin.
Hi, Armin. How you doing?
Good morning.
Hey, Armin.
Morning,
Yeah,
Armin.
coffee is working. I'll wake up now. This is third glass, but I'm awake. These guys are
You're
explaining
awake.
everything. I just don't know where to start.
Hey, Armin,
Yeah,
can you
I'm not really
can you
good
move
at
the mic a little bit closer to your mouth or further?
Okay. It's good now? It's good now? Hello? It's good now?
Yeah, it's breath.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Talk again.
So, about actually guns, what I noticed that you have to wash it properly to get rid of all the salts. When you do that, the guns become like sliding. It's like rolling. So if you can wash it a few times, that will be better. And
that's washing in demineralized and distilled water. Is that right?
yeah, distilled water several times.
And wash them when you dry them or when
No,
you
no, no. You
create?
don't dry them. You just you just milk them.
Yeah, just pour it through the water and let the salts dissolve
Yeah,
in
but
the
when?
distilled water. After you created them.
In the first phase, on the second phase?
No, he's talking about the GANs, not the nano-coated wires. But no.
Oh, no, no, no. I'm talking about the GANs.
Okay.
Even Dave, I saw that you got, guns already produced, correct?
Oh yeah.
Dave? So,
Yeah,
try
sure
to
did,
wash
Armin.
them several times, wash it and let it to settle, then you milk it with this. Actually, yeah, we have metallic cow. Every day we have a milk. It's blue. What else?
Do you filter yours? Do you filter
What
it?
is it? No,
Do
you
you
don't have to
filter it?
filter. No, you don't have to filter them. You just have to add water. You know, when it settles, you just with the syringe take the water out and do it again, the process. Yeah, actually. We're working with two big
just
syringes.
to let everybody know, John is in the go-to meeting. So he just joined. Hi, John.
Hi.
Morning, John.
Yes, well, we are about to leave, so I'll just join for the moment.
Ah.
Hello, John. John, can we do what we like with your reactor?
Yeah, I already... John, the gold is dropping from it, you know. And it's 99999. Jorge is in charge, so don't worry. He will take care of it. Yep.
Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. You can go ahead. Go ahead, Armin.
So, any questions that I can answer it? Ludmil, are you there? Hello?
Give him a second to unmute his mic.
Yeah, just give him a moment.
Okay.
Probably grab the wrong.
What joke?
Well, just you know, about John's reactor. It'd be is it okay if we do what we want with it and so on, and we're all wondering what does that mean. You know.
It's specifically set up for producing gold. So.
So it'd be a good time when he's gone to make use of it, perhaps. Yes.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna do.
I see.
Jorge in charge, we can produce everything. Yeah.
What was that? Like we couldn't hear quite.
It is in a safe. Yeah, he boxed it, you know. It's like samurai fighter, if you see.
Oh, yes, I see. Yeah. Away from prying eyes.
Yeah. You can. Only the sword is not there, so.
John, I did have a question how you got over your the water issue that you had inside your reactor.
Water issue?
Yeah, you said when you were cleaning out the...
Okay. It's not a water issue, it was a porosity, and the ceramic has been fired at 1285.
Oh, okay, so it's been refired.
Because my previous firing was at 1250. And we managed to have somebody, I don't know exactly where, but apparently it's a lady that fired at 1285. Well, that's the temperature I gave and asked to do. So it has been done at that temperature.
That's very good news. And this is the reactor that you brought back from Belgium.
Well, in fact, I made a mixed because the part that was broken, I left it behind. I left it out because I didn't want to put some epoxy. Reminds me that I should maybe pass to the institute to take it back, so I can fire it with glaze to have the two pieces welded correctly.
Okay, so this reactor that we're seeing in the enclosed box is not the reactor that I've seen in Belgium?
Well, half of it is, half of it is.
Okay. Okay, and that still helps with the rotation of the plasma inside then?
So for the rotation of the plasma, it's on the one side only, not on both.
That should rotate the rest of the plasma and the remaining parts, though, should it not?
Yes, it will certainly make a kind of, would I say,
turbulence. Yeah, it'll be turbulent.
Some turbulence that will, would I say, a kind of mixing of what's inside. It will certainly push the gases laterally because there is some centrifuge force, but also the push towards the top. So you will have a layer that will flow from down to top on the side. There will be less turbulence on the top, but what's pushed, the gas pushed by the form inside the sphere, that push will be induced to continue on the top side.
Okay, I understand. And so this is not coated on the inside? Because I remember last time you were talking about coating.
Yes, well, to go fast, I decided to make it without any coating and just gas layering, and we'll have to see.
Okay, I see. So you went with a strictly gas layered environment instead of having a coated environment.
Well, it was to go forward fast.
Right, yeah. I'd also see it as, since it is made out of ceramic, it would already have a form of nano layering inside that due to it being made of the earth. Can I see it that way too?
It's clay. It's clay, and clay 5 is a material which is non-conductor. It's a material that is in this position should be closed. Well, I hope so. I haven't made any measurement to see how closed the material is. And so I still have to, I should maybe try to find out how close it is, but for me it was quite close. Apparently the problem remaining now is could be in another place, not on the in the clay itself, but joined somewhere because of the silicone that could have some bad contact somewhere. I don't know. It seems to be that there were some leaks at join. So the joint
I understand.
Have to find out again with soapy water, blow inside, and then see where the leaks are. Add some more silicone, and should make the thing going clear. Anyway, I'll be in Belgium in a few days, and I'll start again with another one. I'll do it completely in porcelain, because porcelain was much more closed as a material.
Okay. Thank you for that update.
Oh, hello. 1 minute.
Yes,
I
hello.
want to pass it to Ivan. You have something to say.
Hey, Rick.
Hello, good morning.
Like we lost Merrick. Sorry, Ivan. Just one moment. Looks like we lost Merrick in the Skype call. Did he drop out on purpose, or does he need to come back in here?
Merrick is here.
I have dropped it because of some problems, but continue.
Okay, just making sure.
Okay, good morning. This is Ivan. As far as activity on the internet, I have definitely been the quietest member of us all. Now, I have been in the what was said so far. I was, first of all about the monster. I was about to mention, my monster is in the children's corner of my dental office at this moment. And
I bet you the kids are loving it there, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Earlier on, when the star formation setup was mentioned, I was thinking, well, you may see that on the images, but it may not be that apparent, that it is important that the middle reactor is higher up than the three others. So the 320-degree reactors are lower, and the middle one is the top of the star formation. And so yesterday, as we had this little ceremony and we were all praying, or at least communicating our thoughts, and each in our own language or in different languages, it was a very moving moment. And earlier on, I was reflecting on the fact that the 20th century technology was mostly based on the fire, the fire element, and the new technology is plasma element. Now, so the plasma has an awareness. The fire is also a living being. It also has an awareness. But it seems to me that the awareness of the plasma, if I understand it well from what Mr. Keshe said, from what I know, the fire, although it is a living entity, it has an awareness, it still allows us to use it for negative purposes. And from what I understood from Mr. Keshe is that the plasma actually has a higher awareness, and that it will only allow its use for peaceful purposes. Maybe that's something that Mr. Keshe can say a word about in a few minutes. It's something which seems very relevant to me.
Thanks, Ivan. I've actually seen a recent video with a lot to do with the spirit and spirit energy. And the ancient times, they always mentioned fire, but when they were mentioning fire, they would also mean the spirit. And that's what I would see as what they would see as the plasma. So I see that we are trying to get back to our roots, yet we use fire. We're just not thinking of it in the correct way. So we see that they were thinking about fire, and we think the fire that we burn in our fireplace, and not the fire that should burn inside of us.
Yeah, definitely. But also, the negative use of all the fire in all the arms is actually based on fire, or the majority of it anyway. For negative purposes.
Yeah, the most destructive force in this, the most destructive weapon in the world right now is everything to do with fire.
So that's, well, there's much to say, but this is about what I had in mind at this point in time, which I wanted to communicate. Maybe Marco wants to say something now. I'll pass the mic on.
I could just add, before Marco speaks, I could just add that another viewpoint of fire is in like naturopathic doctors and so on consider digestive enzymes to be the solar plexus, the stomach, as the fire of the body. And it's interesting that digestive enzymes are very close to the principal structures as far as more or less a crystal type, very basic structure that we might find as part of the stardust idea as well.
Yeah, from what I understood from the writings of Mr. Keshe is that our stomach will actually transform the matter into GANS state, and that the enzymes will actually create a plasma that does that. And what I read from other, what I understood from other reading is that the food that we eat nowadays is way deficient in natural enzymes, but that in fact our body can create any enzymes which are needed, but at the cost of energy. And so that if we eat enzyme depleted food every day of our lives, we will definitely live shorter than if we eat food which is rich in enzymes, because we consume more energy.
We were discussing that yesterday, and one of our new members, Ben, had a way of describing that. Do you want to say that again, Ben? Or
Yeah.
It's about putting fuel on the fire, that concept.
Yeah, my analogy about the way the human cell works is there's a fuel cell, or it's within the cell, like the mitochondria that burns the energy, right? And you can either burn alcohol, which is like throwing gasoline on a fire, or you can burn sugars, which is like throwing kindling in a fire. I got this from another doctor. But my analogy is that it's a construction site as well. And that's just but if you burn fats like lipids, like it's like throwing a log on the fire.
Right. So that was the main concept: is certain fuels will tend to put out the fire. Our solar plexus, stomach fire. And that's to me, that's one of the main causes of health issues in the world, is the fire gets put out and people don't realize it, and you lose the ability to actually digest the food properly because the fire isn't there.
Well, I don't think it's a matter of digesting it properly. I think it's a matter of using more energy to create the required enzymes instead of having them provided in the environment.
Yeah, that's what I think as well. Okay, guys, I will pass the microphone on to Marco anyway.
Thanks, Ivan.
Okay, thanks, Ivan. Well, what can I say? My colleagues said almost everything. Maybe I can say something about my reactor. It's not prepared yet. Actually, first it's a stainless steel reactor, and we tried to coat it with silver. So now it's silver coated, and we tried to get nano layers on the silver. We tried to put in the caustic, and we couldn't achieve nano layers. So then we decided to let it go without layering. Without nano layers on the reactor core. We will use gas layering and try to achieve scintillation and achieve plasma with different gases. My reactor is not prepared yet. Yesterday I tried to close it, but I have leakage. very small leakage, but still it's leakage, and I cannot hold vacuum. So that's the biggest problem here. It's also, there are other two, or at least one reactor has problem with leakage, and it was completely put apart, and we have to start again nano coating. This is Jorge and Yukaku reactor. So we are trying to get also other reactors to put into our formation, but they are still in the progress. Maybe at this opportunity, I would like to invite people to share their experience about testings that they are doing at their home, so that we can be more interactive. Maybe there are some new approaches about nano coating that somebody can teach us. So I would like to point out that we are not here just to teach you. You can also teach us something that you learn from your testing. So maybe about nanolayers, Ludmil asked before about nanolayers. What are we doing here with caustic? We try to open crystal structure of the material. And what means nano? Nano is one atom. It's 10 to the minus 9. And with the opening of the crystal, we get nano atoms. And this nano structure is positioned like a crystals, like a gap material, and this creates environment that creates specific gravitational magnetic field. These gaps are actually like small black holes, and in interaction of these different layers, these gaps, let's say black holes, we get different gravitational magnetic field, and this is the first environment with these fields. We create such environment that we can attract like a magnets, but in gravitational magnetic field, and we create environment to create GANs. Let's say with specific structure of nano layers, we are absorbing CO2 from the air or other gases from the air. It depends how we create nano layers. We can add different material in the procedure to get different layers of nanomaterial. So we create different environment for absorbing GANs.
What about adding GANs during the process of creating nano layers?
Sorry? I didn't understand. Can you repeat?
During my process of coating my zinc, I think I've sent the 40-cell PDF document to everybody. I'm not sure if you read it or not. I'm using 40 buckets with zinc and zinc-coated wire, galvanized, I guess. And in my second process, I was thinking about adding GANs that I've created previously to the caustic solution, and just wondering if that would hinder or...
Just a minute.
Hi, it's Cash. No, if you add GANs, nothing happens to the solution as far as we've seen because we tried it. You can
Okay.
put caustic into the GANs liquid, and you'll find out nothing happens to the end of it. It comes out the same. But
So you're not really
which,
transferring the gravitational magnetic field at all from the
no,
GANs?
GANs only be changed in one way, back to the gas. You can, there is one process only where you can convert the GANs into a matter, and you can convert gas into what do you call it? The GANs into gases. You cannot do it. We tried acid, as I told you before. We tried caustic. We burnt it. We've done everything to it. In so many ways, it opens up back to itself. This is exactly what happens to your body when you're cremated. That's why nothing is left of you when you're cremated except the ashes of the bone, which is leftovers more or less, and some of the salts which are within the ash, within the body of the man. Through a certain process, you release all the entities, all the elements of the body back into the gas states of terms, into the environment. This is understandable. This is part of the process of producing GANs, and now we understand more what cremation does. And this is one of the only ways you can do it. But when you are producing GANs out of the nano layers of the material in your salt, you can run these for months and months till the last atom of the copper in your electrode. You will find you'll be producing GANs. What happens is just the skin of the man. I've explained this before. The immediate layers near the matter component of the copper create a specific gravitational magnetic field which disassociates atomically the copper from its molecular structure. And then as they go through the gaps of the layers, they are changed into a GANs, and you find you continuously collect copper oxide. So what happens is that once you start the process, even though you don't see the very dark black layers as you had originally, but as we've seen it here, the knowledge seekers have seen it, every day they are there with their milking cow, what do you call it, syringes, and are forever collecting copper oxide. Literally, this is a major understanding which has never existed in the world of science. Through a very simple process, what the nature does that we've repeated back in these containers, we are changing matter into its natural condition of elements, entity as single atoms, but in a spherical composition of its magnetic gravitational field. In a matter condition as a molecular, you find the bindings which pushes and literally brings the element to a matter strength magnetic gravitational field. By opening it up back into a GANs, you transfer the same element, the same entity back to its original spherical condition. So what you actually have, you create, if you look into the GANs of the material in the cups, you see little individual balls. Every single individual ball you see with your eye is one atom. Man has never been able to see the structure of a single atom. The GANs are single atom or molecular, single molecules, which themselves create their own atmosphere. So in reality, you look at the single, what do you call it, the star solar formation. Yeah, that's what it is. So you see individual balls. So in reality, in your ball, you have millions and millions of single atomic or molecular. There is a major, and I cannot emphasize it, breakthrough in the field of physics. We have seen it. It's been explained to the scientists. It's been explained to the knowledge seekers in the past week since Fukushima. This is one of the reasons we asked for we asked for the workshop tomorrow. The gravity of what is to be announced in respect to development of nanotechnology will change the course of history of man with physics within the next 24 hours. I have received the results, but I have officially asked it in writing. An immediate urgent report is in progress even as we speak by governments to put it in the formation that the ordinary science can understand. From today till tomorrow, if we receive this report in our hand, the world of physics, literally all the physics books will be rewritten by tomorrow morning. As I said, I received what do you call it, verbal confirmation on Tuesday morning. I immediately stopped the publication of the Fukushima paper because it has to be added to, that it makes it easier and becomes immediate in the hand of public. This explains a lot of things about the GANs and the gas state, which we knew, we've seen it, and now we make it public. No science, no level of physics could explain it till it was explained and understood by the scientists around the world. This, after Easter, there will be a huge revolution and evolution in the world of science. You will understand it because of the way it's coming through and because of the way it's been done. A lot of things will change by tomorrow. We announce it step by step. It was promised by Easter of 2014 the change will come, and it has come. And now we open our books and exactly who we are and why we are here and what we're going to deliver. The report is being put on an emergency channel by the officials, and if it's done by today, we will publish it tomorrow in its raw form. This will create a lot of changes in the whole environment of the science, into the world of every man's living especially in the Western world, and into geopolitical situation around the world. I cannot say much more, but if I receive the report which have been promised, we will release it, and if we have not, we allow other nations to do it immediately because it's been explained. One of the things which is never explained fully, and I explained this to John after the Fukushima, is that while Yukoko was in Japan and mixing the CO2 with the contaminated soil and water, in those contaminated water we produced pure gold. The material will be examined and re-examined, and the process has been explained to the scientists who understood. So we have shown in a very simple live what was the process happening. Molecules and atoms of gold was embedded in the soil in Fukushima. It's written in the paper to be published, but now you get a prelude to what is to become in the Fukushima paper. Production of the gold has become as easy as drinking water. It's been done. We had to show it this way, that there was no ambiguity about the situation. I go back on to the reactors which Marek very nicely tried to explain everything. And further on it got picked up by Yvonne regarding the whole situation, but in a plasma condition. You look at two plastic reactors made by the Iranian scientists. I again thank the Office of His Excellency President of Iran at that time to facilitate such a research, and they spent a fortune on it. The structure of this bigger reactor and the structure of the smaller reactor, which are sitting next to each other, has a purpose. And maybe for the first time I explain this even to the knowledge seekers. The smaller reactor is electron. The bigger reactor, half moon, is a proton. The bigger reactor, half moon, is dynamic inside. This is how a proton behaves. It releases its energy internally. The smaller reactor is the electron, which is dynamic outside, but internally absorbs what is received from the proton fields. It utilizes it to create a new gravitational magnetic field for the electron to find its position in respect to the proton, which is a bigger one. That's why lighter entities with a lower mass, always their position and the speed is dictated by the parents, by the mother. This is a fundamental understanding in physics. This is why I built this reactor. Not just to have a smaller, bigger reactor, but to prove the concept of the electron and proton. Proton is in the center. It releases its energy continuously because it's a bigger mass. The smaller one, which is the electron, and is sitting literally next to, I specifically chose the position that they are next to each other. It absorbs the surplus energy which is released by the electron, by the proton. It absorbs internally, and we've seen it. It changes the internal core. That's why, as Marek explained, it's sitting on a pin. So what he absorbs internally, plus his own internal gases, dictates the speed of the internal rotation of the reactor, and that speed of rotation changes gravitational magnetic field of the electron, so the electron finds in position in respect to the proton, which is a bigger one. That's why I've been telling so many times, I've caught this little one so many times in Tehran. It was amazing. I've cut myself so many times because it's got a screw pins, and the pins, when they fly, you try to catch a ball, and what do you call it, a hedgehog when it's flying. The pins goes all over you. This little reactor has got the screws, and these screws, when they fly at a high speed, you try to catch it, it's just catching a hedgehog in flight. So I've cut myself a lot of time with it. So you understand why the systems are in that position. The mother reactor has a different capability. The mother reactor, or the center core, has externally more rotating, internally rotating, and in the center there is what you call nano-coated material, which has the spectrum of all the magnetic fields embedded in it when it was made. That's why it's black. So it centralizes the whole plasma internally. Then we have a force which behaves literally like the center of the universe. And because the fields emanate from it, from the inner core, the outer core, dictates again the center core becomes the mother, the proton. And the three boundary reactors, which are rotating around it, they behave like the electron. Again, this is a fundamental understanding of it. This is why we put this combination in these coordinations and this pattern. They have three more reactors which will come in, and they will sit within the 120 degrees of the 120 degrees. So in fact, they shift by some 60 degrees in the middle position. Now they behave as an electron in respect to the electron themselves, and at the same time they enforce the field centrally to the central core, which that's why the central core dictates the positioning and the full flight system. But there is something else. We go back to the spiritual side. The Iranian half reactor is the body of the man. His behavior what he decides and he does is reflected and is captured by the soul of the man, which is the smaller reactor. And then when the soul receives the misconduct of the body, it adjusts and dictates its position, and in fact dictates the behavior of the proton itself or the body of the man. This is the way the universe works. This is when you make the cups. I'm sure the knowledge seekers have shown you the pictures. On the system I made, we see 2 or 3 times the structure of the body of the man. 2, which is a nitrogen and a carbon. 1 oxygen in the middle, which is clear. We see a hydrogen. Then we see another body called oxygen. And then we see another, what I call nitrogen. Body of a man, separation, the emotional part of the man, separation, and the soul of the man. Even in the universe, we see how it's protected and how it's done. We have not seen change of color in any of the positions of clear, liquids. And they are keeping them. And if you look at it in 48 set, and if you understand the combination, every single orange color you see in the box, in respect to the totality of its environment, is 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1. Which means the mans are connected internally through their souls and through their emotions, which comes through the soul. So this shows the essence of the creation. But you have to be wise to understand the process. As I always say to the knowledge seekers, you are too passive. You just come and go, you don't understand. This brings us back to something very important. One of the most important things is that we have seen the construction of these reactors from different elements. The reason is to see what elements creates what in the atmosphere and amongst themselves. As I always say to the knowledge seekers, I'm here to learn, but to observe. This is very important. If you can observe what's happening, then you have the, you have the possibility to further the knowledge. If you are here in this position just to make energy systems and just to make gun systems, you're back into the normal position the man has been for millions of years. What can benefit me, that's all it matters. But it's what you can add to the knowledge which matters more. We come to one thing which is, you'll see a lot of half spheres in the process of our testing. We have about 3 of them. The reason is that when you have half a sphere, you have a stable reactor. You don't get the polarity change. It's in the book, I've explained it to people who haven't read the books. The polarity of the sun changes through this current flow of the plasma. When we say current flow of plasma, it doesn't mean current as electron, but current as gravitational magnetic field. And when this reaches a point, the whole system adds up to each other, and the 2 different cores within the center have to find a position. It becomes like a traffic jam. So the forces of, I was explaining this to my sons some time ago. He said, how can you explain it? I said, it's just like a rugby game. You put two groups and they're all entangled with each other and they try to force. And what you see, they start rolling. If you put a lot of rugby players and put a ball in the middle, and you see them all pushing, trying to be correct, and at the same time, don't touch the ball. If you played rugby, you know what I'm talking about. You see them, they start rotating. This is what happens to exactly inside the reactor core. The 2 fields lock in because of their strength balance, and all they do, they start rolling, and that's they get the rotation of the polarity. That's the nearest to how I can explain it. But it's due to the force field flow of the magnetic field of the gravitational magnetic field, or what you call magrams. Is there any questions before I go any further?
Yeah, there is a
going-
couple of questions in
they're
live
always
stream. I'm not sure
always-
if
Pardon?
Ad can talk. Sorry. I'm not sure if Ad can talk or not. He had a question in live stream or in GoToMeeting. I'm going to say no. His question was the production of gold has to do with the plutonium.
Pardon?
He said his question was does the production of the gold have to do with the plutonium in the soil?
Yes, we explained that last time, I think. What happens? It has to do with the production of plutonium. Exactly what happens? I explained it last time, and I explained this into the to the officials who've been looking into this. I have no doubt this is again goes back to the International Atomic Energy Authority. I have tried and I've raised the point with them. This is one of the reasons the Japanese government has brought so many restricted news broadcasting and criminal conditions against anybody reporting anything to do with Fukushima, is that without a shadow of a doubt, I have explained that again in the Fukushima paper to be published, maybe released today or tomorrow if we can finish it, that we see traces and increases of cesium, and this process is only dependent and can only happen if there has been a plutonium in the process. And what happens, the plutonium conversion and the production of the cesium, the energy release of the cesium from matter to GANs, because of the huge number of the neutrons within the cesium, releases energy, plasmatic energy, in the level of a neutron itself, because you have to understand the surplus number of the neutrons within the nucleus of the cesium is just about right when you put the totality of them together to transfer it from radioactive to non-radioactive of its own. This plasmatic energy is equal to plasmatic energy of one neutron, which if there is a mercury in the water or in the soil, this energy of one neutron is automatically absorbed by the mercury, changes it to helium and gold. And in this process, we always see production of the helium gas. This has been, in a way, confirmed in past few days through the channels we are working. So the mercury, I said that when we came out of the process with Yukoko in the lab, I said to John, because as you know, the boys pull his leg about he's made the reactor to build gold or to make gold. John's one of his aims is to prove that it can be done, and I said to John, you made gold. We made gold because he made a lot of effort. He made part of the material. He was part of the process of the teamwork we did here for the material which went to Fukushima. And I said to him, your dream was to make gold. You made it and you never noticed it. And now maybe he understands, and I explained to him how it was done. Maybe he understands exactly what. That's why I said the gold has no more value as a metal in the world of creation, or in the world of man. Because throughout the universe, gold is nothing like everything else, but man has made something out of it for himself. So yes, we have made gold. It's been done. I'm sure we have asked for analysis of the material. You can add gold or can add mercury into your soil deliberately, and then add plutonium to it, or add cesium to the soil. And when you put cesium in touch with the GANs of the copper oxide or CO2 oxide or anything else, This automatically converts the cesium from its radioactive status to a non-radioactive status of GANs, because in Fukushima we didn't extract any nuclear material. And the radiation reduction came through the conversion from gas, from matter to GANs state. And when you come to a GANs state, you become in balanced position, which means when you're in balanced position, you don't radiate much out. So that's why we saw reduction in cesium. The cesiums are still in there, but they're in the state of GANs. And the energy which was released, that you see it in our body, cobalt does the same. B12, which you eat, is exactly that's what it does. It changes, allows the change of matter from one state to another. That's why our body exists as a GANs. We eat food as matter. In presence of the cobalt B12 in our body, it changes the conversion back to GANs within presence of the different salts in the body of the man. So we, in fact, the Fukushima test showed us the whole operation of the creation, how man was created. And in that process, there were mercuries. We know there were mercuries in the contamination. It's going to be proven again, but now we have set a deliberate test to prove this. It'll be done somewhere around about 5th, 8th of May of next year, this next month. So, John, you made gold, but not the way the Archimedes has been telling you for centuries. It's made through the plasma technology, and this is how your body works. I tried to explain this last time. So all you need to do, you add cesium and you add GANs into the mercury environment. Cesium tries to come into the balanced condition of GANs state. It happens only with cesium and another element, I'll explain that later. The energy released by the number of neutrons, the radioactiveness of the matter, I always explain, is due to the number of neutrons relating as much energy as they can to become an entity of electron and a proton, stable condition. So when you absorb all these radiations which are coming from neutrons, then that energy, specifically in a specific condition, in presence of the GANs, which change the cesium to its GANs state, the energy released, which is the heat of your body or the light we see or run a motor, that energy is equal to energy of one neutron. You add one neutron into the, into mercury, unstabilizes the mercury into gold and the helium atom. So you create helium and you create, gold atoms. And if you are not very careful, bad luck to the people who happen to them, if there is still copper oxide GANs or another GANs in the soil, you have gold, but you can't eat it, because then it becomes the GANs of the gold. So you have nothing in your hand. You have gold, but in the GANs state. So if you want to keep the gold as a matter, you have to make a very direct intervention to stop the process to go through GANs state. Or you measure the amount of the GANs you put in that does not allow the atomic changes of certain amount of the new gold to GANs, and you still have some matter GANs gold, some matter gold. Now, maybe you can understand what I have been saying to the British government and the others who've been trying now to imprison me. We'll open this discussion very soon. That I kept on saying, as much gold as you want in the Central Bank of Libya, I'll put them there tomorrow morning. You've seen how easy, instantaneous, you don't need to wait. Gold is made out of mercury within nanoseconds. The minute you saw your cocoa adding the CO2 or copper oxide into the soil, that instant, gold was made. Now, separated. We know this is done, this is getting done through Raman spectroscopy, and I hope I receive the reports within the next 24 hours. Then we explain to you how correct we were. One of the reasons that they are trying to silence the Keshe Foundation and put me in prison, which is now they issue the writs to get me to Belgium to do it, is to stop the process. But now you have enough to carry on. And in fact, I'll tell you later, we're going to publish the the 2 warrants we received for me and my wife to go to Belgium next Tuesday to be executed. But this is all the cover-up. The accidents will happen while we are there. Why should a wife of a scientist to be what do you call it, indicted for forgery? If we are for what do you call it, embezzlement, what do you call it, fraud. I given my knowledge free to the world. I could make billions out of it. I don't need to do a fraud. This is just a cover-up again by Mr. Hans Braconier, the King of Belgium, and their executor, Mr. Delannoy, in the police force of Belgium. You will see that the indictment is signed by him. So there is a position. I go to prison next week and then there will be nothing, or we have to do something about it. And we'll explain what we're going to do about it. Because we've shown how easily gold is made and how easily you can understand this composition. We don't make health systems. We don't make medical systems. We make health system understanding this process. When you open the reactors, now you have the patterns. It says magnets. Why do you put magnets? Magnets in a certain condition, in a certain structure, create a plasma copy of the body of the man. And you can put nanomaterials that you cannot see inside them to produce the condition you like. We've shown it. So this is a very complicated position. Bill will explain it tomorrow. That's why we asked for the presentation of tomorrow. We never had the 2 workshops back to back, but this has to be done for tomorrow, and then we explain you the reason. It comes back to one point. Look at the structure we set on the floor yesterday. Marek was going to explain and put the videos up of the whole thing. We started the spaceship program, 8 of us, on the floor with a pure heart and peaceful purposes. Our mission is complete. We have started this technology with one hand, with different fingers on it, all to serve the same thing. So, as it's been our wish yesterday when we started it, this wish will stay the wish and they will follow this technology. We started it a peaceful way, and this tool, this system will become tool of peace. Because we wished it, and our wish is supreme. It will not be changed. You got to understand what happened yesterday. Before we start this program, before we start this session, I explained to the guys in the background. Yesterday, at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, when we start the first test, when loading first vacuum, Keshe Foundation, with its arms at Keshe Foundation Research and Development, which is a registered company in EU, has entered into the spaceship program directly. This means, as we set our tools down yesterday with the 4 reactors, we are set to create lift and motion. So we enter into the space technology officially as of yesterday. We enter officially into the space program officially. Keshe Foundation, as of last night, has become official testing spaceship technology, not by talk, but by action. So, what this means, from last night, the environment and the area within the test center of the Keshe Foundation becomes a test zone area for a space technology development. In the normal flight system, in the normal aircraft system, you have runways and you have tunnels. With this system on testing, we don't need no runways, and our field goes far beyond the boundaries of this property. So, we invite the American military, who has a base near to the Keshe Foundation. We invite the Italian government, who have a military base near Keshe Foundation Center in the Sonsano, into negotiation in how we can accommodate each other. We have an airport nearby, Verona Airport, that we do not interfere with communication line, but we can carry with our test, or at least we come to some sort of understanding. This move has been made this morning. We have asked for the communication with the officials. So it's not just what you look at. We are creating fields beyond the boundaries which we don't see it ourselves, which can interfere with aircraft flow above us. The reason I say military, because they do all sorts of exercises for summer holiday shows around here.
Seem to have temporarily lost the Spaceship Institute shortly after talking about some military things. And I noticed at our vicinity we have a
sound died. Okay.
Yeah, I'm still able to talk on the microphone here. So I just we just pointed out there was a military plane or some sort of plane. I can't say military. There's an airplane just flew over this area, which is kind of unusual. We'll try to get the Spaceship Institute people back here. Okay, well, it'll take a few minutes here to hook back up again. I think something happened. Here's something happened.
Does anybody have any comments or their own personal experiences that they would want to share during this time while we wait? Gert, do you have anything you want to share?
Do you hear me? Hello?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I just published the pictures of the couple of samples I tried to nano layer with the use of the oil of orange peel. I did this in the third stage, and the surface looks like how do I say, a wild nano layer instead of a smooth surface. I did this because Mr. Cash asked last workshop, and to see what happens. And the meaning of it is to code that way in the inner in the core to open the plasma faster, I think. Do you saw the pictures? It's on my Dropbox and Facebook page.
Yeah, just looking at them now. So it definitely created a different kind of structure.
Yeah. The first two times I did it on the usual way with the caustic, In the third stage, I let it dry again, and after drying, I put some orange peel oil on it, and put it again in the container, and made a new phase by using the steam of the process. I gave it in
So you
total,
didn't put it in the caustic? You
Hello?
just put it on top in the second process?
Hello, can you hear us?
Oh.
Yes, yes.
Hi, Mr. Cash.
Did we get cut off? Where? Where? Which part? Yes, okay, what I explained doesn't matter. It's getting recorded here, I presume, yeah? We are recording it in the background here. Yes, this system now enters into the position of space technology beyond the matter level of burning fuel. So we have to bring the military in, we have to bring people in to monitor, to work with us. And I explain further that these reactors will not do wrong. As I said, Ivan explained that because it's a plasma, the proton, the center core emits, and the outer core can only respond back to in what is received according for it to be correct, so it moves. That's how the electron does. So it can never do wrong. That's why electron never hits its proton, because it cannot destroy its own creation. So these are the things which we try to explain and to understand. Keshe Foundation, as of last night, has entered not only into a spaceship program, but into affecting the decision of every nation in how they are going to interact with each other. I have a very, very, very clear message, and I know all our talks are listened on both sides of the fence. Within the next few days and few weeks, Ukrainian war will be useless. Because whoever is fighting for whatever, there is no need for it. There is no need for more bloodshed to prove who's correct. Tomorrow presentation, tomorrow workshop, I'll explain something to you which will shock you. But in a way, I know a lot of you have been waiting for it. It's just the confirmation of it will be a change. Therefore, we come back to something, a very totally new understanding of our own creation. Something which has been with us, but we never understood it. And now we have more people, 7, 8 more, plus hundreds of you, thousands of you in the background who understands more. And you can do the job. You have no problem to do it, because I read here and there, I observe things. A lot of you are on the right track. But you are like ostriches. You know, you can't make your mind which one you're going to be. As I said this before, Arabs call an ostrich a camel bird. They say to him, you're a bird, fly. He says, I'm a camel. And when they say, if you're a camel, where is your hump? He says, I'm a bird. You lot in the general public cannot decide what is the matter and what is the GANs, and how their operation can be used. Some of you went back and in the talks at the beginning, talked about the brain GANs we are producing. This brain GANs is literally been here for past week, 2 weeks, I think. And is the operation of the reactor. Our colleagues in other governments are working now to supply us with specific GANs that will be used in the central core of the mother reactor in the lab, which means we will feed in, we will supply in, the center core not with gases, which still have to be plasmacized, but with the plasma of the gases of this element. If I tell you how lucky you people are with the Fukushima, you will laugh at me. But our Japanese colleagues have the key to the future of the man's progress in the space in their hand, and they don't know it. The negotiation will start very soon, and we will explain to you step by step what's going on and what is the process and why it is. This I hope I'll explain to you tomorrow when I have my, I have the position. I'm in position to disclose it if it's appropriate. But the Fukushima disaster being such a disaster, already at this moment will change the course of the humanity. We saw the Japanese in 70s and 80s taking over the industry. If they understand what is the proposition, what's on the table, Fukushima will become the next step for the development and the production of huge or increase in employment in Japan. This will be explained tomorrow, I hope. Any questions?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Keshe. This is Lucian.
Yeah, the spokesman of the speakers and the rest.
Yes, the translator. Before going even further, I would like to ask you a very, very simple favor, because to clarify the concept from the previous workshop, in which you explained how to create copper oxide and spherical structure, GANs of the carbon from the planar structure. So basically, a very simple question for people to understand is, for example, if I want to get in one of these tanks CO2, what specific one has to do? And let's say if in the other tank he wants to have CH4 or CH3, what he has to do, because basically the concept of withdrawing copper oxide through the gravitational magnetic field of water make it spherical GANs of copper oxide. I think that was understood, but at this point I feel that no one does understand how, because probably you don't have how to measure the gravitational magnetic field of CH4 or CH3 or whatever you want to obtain there. How we are going to do this?
The process is very simple. What you got to do is to target what you want to produce. To target what you want to produce, you have to understand
let's say CH4.
the structure. Okay, what do you have? Carbon and 4 hydrogen.
Yes.
What is that?
Right.
What is it? It's your oxygen. Okay? If you very, very, very simply create a salt condition that can create and hold on to the carbon and releases 4 oxygen from the water, you got your CH4. You got your methane. You see bubbles. Look at the shape and the size of the bubbles. You can say which one is a helium, you can say which one is the oxygen. Because the bubbles are released as matter.
A very silly question. How do you do that?
We very soon will make the measurement tools for it. Pardon? What is
okay.
1 euro? No, hold on. He says 1 euro. What is 1 euro?
You're asking how.
Yeah. No, but the thing is, you see, go back and look at the pictures in the lab. I have used the leftover of the copper wires which the knowledge seekers used to create their copper oxide beds, as you see it. I haven't used anything else, but I used that the same copper. But if you look, the same copper, the same wires, what was left over in one morning, I went to the lab and I used it. The same wire has not produced, the same copper wire has not produced a single copper oxide in any of the 48 homes or the blocks. But what it's doing is producing fat, and it's producing CO2, and it's producing CH3. And it's the same elements. How come some don't change and stay producing the same material? In your copper oxide beds, which knowledge seekers have created, the way they rolled their copper wires created that environment. I don't know if it was Armin or somebody else. They rolled it, they made it like curly hair. And that curly hair creates a composite environment within the center. If you put a super slow, what do you call super fast cameras on these containers and put them to a transparent glass, you will see that you heard that song. It says rain. Just the rains. Just what it rains is literally copper oxide. If you can watch this in a fast movie motion, you will see these copper oxide layers are raining copper oxide. The copper coated material wires are literally rain copper oxide. The reason being is the way this curling was done, and the oxidization of the copper became very rapid. It's the same molecules of water in the same container. Some of these are not copper oxide. Some of these are pure copper GaNs. Most of them are pure copper GaNs. But because...
Okay, so you are trying to say that by making a horizontal
listen,
coil,
it's very
that will
simple.
intensify.
It's very simple. You have only copper to work with. So what happens to it? The copper is getting separated from molecule to atomic, and it gets, as an atomic level, gets pushed up. If you have managed in your process, if they wouldn't have twisted it so much, and in some places, because on the top or the bottom, the copper atom, as it's going through the layers, is already half converted into a GaNs. When it reaches the water, it cannot be attached to oxygen in the water. So it stays in a singular GaNs atomic structure, or GaNs structure. So even part of I see it all the time, they just clean it and they call it a copper oxide. But most of this is copper itself. Partially there's copper oxide in there, and you have a very good, very fine CO2, GaNs as well. But it's very little, because the environment is so volatile that the copper in the presence of the carbon and the CO2 which is absorbed, release the carbon. Carbon itself attaches itself to to the free hydrogens, makes CH4, or changes automatically, because everything is on a magnetic gravitational field. You see it as oxygen bubbles which come out. When you make a copper oxide, where is the hydrogen going to go from the water?
Yes, I have a question about that, Mr. Keshe. If you have a reactor, excuse me, you have a reactor that's rotating and you're starting to fill it and clean it after the nano coatings are already installed and it's ready to go, would not flushing with hydrogen tend to reduce the copper oxide back to its copper form, at least on the outer layers of the nanocoating. So that if we flushed
what has
without
happened?
rotating, if there's rotation, you had the gases as an insulating layer, then the hydrogen wouldn't get into the nano layers perhaps. But if it was just not rotating and flushing with hydrogen, wouldn't it tend to convert the oxide back to the base metal?
No. Because the atomic spacing of the copper oxide, or what they call copper nanolayer, will not allow that. As much as is an absorber, is a repellent too. You're dealing with a plasma. The nanolayers, even though they are flat, but they're still in the same position in their gaps.
Right.
No, this does not happen. We don't see that. Otherwise, then you will have a different composition materials. You have a mixture materials which we don't see.
Right.
As much as it attracts magnetic gravitational field, the layers have their own plasma repulsion too.
That makes sense. Thanks for clarifying that.
The next question.
Mr. Cash, I'm here from Belgium, and
Hi, good.
and the last
Most
workshop,
probably I see you next week if I'm there. And if you want to see me, most probably I'll be in prison in the police station in Kortrijk. You're quite welcome. I'll shake hand with you from behind the bars.
I hope not.
It's planned that way.
Oh.
We will release the indictment tomorrow. You will see it. This is not a joke.
Okay.
My life is public. Why shouldn't the indictment by a fraudulent police officer be in public as well? He signed it himself. And as I can see, he's been promoted his last attempt on my life. Do you know, I explained to you something while you're there, Gert. Do you know why he's indicting my wife?
No.
Because my wife videoed him when the last time they came to kill me, and a police officer, which is correct, never runs away and hides.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife videoed him running away and hiding behind the walls, not to be videoed.
No.
And that's why he's trying to get access to that video to destroy incriminated, what do you call it, pictures of him. Carry on.
Okay. The last workshop, you asked me to try with copper plate samples and nanolayer by using the oil of an orange peel.
Mm-hmm.
I did that, and the pictures are on the chat in my Dropbox or on the Facebook page.
Let me have a look. Marek is trying to bring it up.
Mm-hmm. I gave the place at first two phases, two stages of nanolayering, and the third stage I let the plates dry again.
Just wait. We're trying to rate. Just wait, please.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to see this picture.
Go to Facebook.
Go to Facebook.
Garrett on Facebook. Yeah,
yes. Just wait. We're trying. We got to understand what you're talking about.
The layering looks like rougher,
yeah,
not smooth.
Yeah.
I did what you asked me.
Yeah, explain. Where is what? Where is the oil, and how did you apply the oil?
And when I started the third stage of nanolayering in the caustic, I let the place dry again and brought the oil on the surface.
Did you put the oil before you tested or after?
Sorry?
did you put the oil, orange oil, before you start the coating or after?
I added in the third stage. Dus in the first two stages, I put the plates in the caustic, yeah, and the third stage in the steam with the oil on it, and I repeated again for 3 times, but the other times I didn't add oil, any more oil. I just added once.
Urgent? Just one second, I'll come back. Something is happening once.
Okay, you can continue. Mr. Cash will come.
Okay.
Later. Or we can continue with other theme or questions and return back to this.
There's definitely a different structure on those copper plates with the orange added, or the orange oil added.
Yeah, it's.
Yes, I can see it also.
Miske said it had more ability to yeah, how do you say, to drag the plasma inside the core.
And you've put it on the strips or just the solution?
On the plates. So I the first stage I put copper plates in the caustic, yeah, like you guys always do, and afterwards I put it on the how do you say, chicken wire, add some current, or use the voltmeter actually a few times. Yeah, that's the first stage. Second stage, I put the plates again in the caustic, and afterwards I put it again on the chicken wire at the each 5 hours the voltmeter. And the third stage, I let the plates dry for an hour or 2 hours.
Outside of the box, or?
Yes, outside the box. I add the oil on them.
Before drying?
Sorry?
Before drying or after?
After drying, and then I did 3 more stages that way, but I added just once the oil in the third stage, not in the other ones. It looks like a wild nano-laser.
How have you managed to cover these plates with the oil without touching, or?
No. Well, yeah. I just squeezed the peel of the orange, and the oil comes out.
Pull it through.
No.
It's interesting. So the structure is a little bit different, but
it's not smooth. Yeah? It's a kind of wild surface.
maybe it's the residual of the oil on it.
Which part is this part is with orange?
I don't know exactly, but
we are looking at the picture, and which part is?
There are two plates, two samples. I added at one sample the orange oil, and on the other one no oil. But after the third phase, I saw that both surfaces were equal. So I think the oil had maybe evaporate a bit in the container. Washed. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So at the end, when you compare those two, treated, untreated with the oil, you see any difference?
No, they are both the same.
Both the same?
Yes.
But you put them into the caustic again?
Yes.
After oiling, no. I just used the steam. Okay.
What have you used?
The environment, the steam. This the first two times I put the plates in the caustic with the boiling water, and on the third, fourth, and fifth stage, if it's need to be do it 5 times, I just place them on the chicken wire above the caustic with the boiling water and close the container.
So just steam it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but most probably another layer was created on the top of that orange oil layer. So you created another environment.
Could be, yeah.
This can be different composition.
You created different gravitational and magnetic fields with these layers.
Yes. Yes.
So,
sandwich of orange.
Orange layer.
The reason I think that Mr. Cash asked me to do this is instead of be patient for a month or 2 months to get the GANS layer, powder GANS layer on the surface of the core, the wall of the core, the inner wall of the core. You could be use the oil of the orange to have a nano layer that be able to take the how do you say, to open the plasma quicker.
The reason I asked you to do this is because of the property of the oil of orange.
Mm-hmm.
The oil of orange or citrus fruit is very much near nano thickness.
Mm-hmm.
And this, what you've done with the oil, you have created these gaps, which allows them to sponge up. They feel more like a spongish.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because as I explained to you last time, or the reason now, I've said this before, we are using lower temperature washing up liquids and low temperature washing powders, and they encourage to produce more and more liquid washing powders than solid, is because the oil of orange, especially, and citrus fruit are very singular atomic, near enough to atomic structure, and they can penetrate the gaps. And that's why when you can penetrate the gaps, you can take the dirt away from the clothes. And when you put them through the process, because they are already in the liquid state, your structure is not totally nano copper oxide or nano layers of copper. Your structure now has a gap space of the oil, which partially is a hydrogen. The spacing you see, the fluffing up, is now you have another, what do you call it, space, which is magnetic field, is a hydrogen. That's why I asked you to do this, because I use this technique sometimes for producing, what do you call it, open space, or what I call powdering.
Yeah.
It's a very good technique if you do it, but you have to make sure that there is no residual. That's why you have to do it with a hot caustic or in the steam of the car. But if you do it when you put it through the second time, you will see the difference. They just open up. Yeah, caustic steam, but even with the other one. This is one of the ways of creating what they call it, the cloud formation in your layering. You can do it once or twice. If you do it too much, then you get drop-offs. You literally get ganses. You will see it. Try it, you will see it.
Okay.
You can't do it more than once or twice. I haven't seen. But the thing is, the cloudiness comes up. But the best way to do the cloudiness is, or what do you call it, is to, what do you call it, time. Time is the best way to make a powder surface. This is, what's this noise?
There is some noise on the other side. It's alarm.
Where?
It's
Conversation. Ah, okay. What do you call it? With the way I do it, I leave the material in the core for at least a week, 2 weeks, and then you can add what do you call it, the oil into it to do the powdering. It's a very interesting way to do the job. I have started teaching, or I tell you, you try it, then you see, or this is the way we have to open it, because everybody else will do the same. You got to test, you got to open up, and you have to teach us what you learn, and then I explain to you what you see. But citrus fruit, oranges, if you understand the process you just created, go back into the structure of fruits like ananas. Yeah, pineapple. In nuclear reactors, we see corrosion due to bromine. And these fruits carry bromine. And when you eat them, the structure you see on the surface of your copper oxide or your plate happens to the cover of your neurosystem. If it's not done and eaten in conjunction with something else which can interact with it. This is why just go on the internet and read about the fruits with bromine. We see the same decomposition in nuclear cladding in the reactors. If you understand the structure and change of the composition in the gaseous state, then you understand how these chemicals affect and create some neuro damage in the people who are vulnerable in the right salt mixture in the certain part of the body. does not affect everyone. But if it's like the way I use a copper wire and I produce protein, and the others use the same copper wire and they use copper oxide, these fruits, due to the minerals they carry or the metals they carry, can cause certain neurodamages. It's not a damage, it's a change, exactly what you've seen in your plate. And we see that in the neurosystem. And the only way to change it is by the eating of the certain opposite fruits which neutralizes the oil. You can add another mineral to the same copper oxide, and what you're going to get, no effect. You say it doesn't work. So you have to understand what you're doing. I've done a lot of tests like this. Originally, one of the part of our conclusion was that like diseases like MS come through this decomposition cloudiness, that the condition of the salt within the body orients the carbon from a conductor to a resistor, or resistor to a carbon. And this was one of the path of the research which I did for quite some time, and it's proven to be correct. What you do when you eat these fruits, you create such a cloudiness, and then in the right composition, the carbon, because now it's in a looser, what they call it, bounding of the gravitational magnetic field, you can orientate the carbon from a resistor to a conductor by releasing some of its energy, exactly what you do with the cesium. And then you get the conductivity of the cells, or what you call MS. What you've done is very clear, because I've done exactly what you've done, and this was what I was hoping you will see. This is exactly what you see with the process of MS or neurodamages. Like in the Caribbean or in South America, where they use ananas, there is a counter medicine for it, a counter chemical for it. And in Europe, we are not used to it. And our people in the same country have forgotten why they eaten things. In culture, in the back part of our DNA and our RNA, we knew why. You know, it's just like nowadays, if you go walking and you get touched by a nettle, you find a horse, you find you rub it, and the pain goes. In these countries where they used to eat ananas, they must have seen centuries ago paralysis and all sorts of problems. And they found a counter fruit balance for it. It's a long red pepper, very sweet. We see it sold in the supermarket in the West, but people don't understand why they eat it. Most of the bromine-carrying fruits need the composition of the redness of this material, this long sweet pepper, to balance the condition. And you've created exactly the same position. Now, if you find something else, which I'm not going to tell you, you can put it in the same water and you get nothing. And in some of the salts which you get, you will find out the effect will disappear. It doesn't disappear. All you do, you release the GaNs of the hydrogen back into the atmosphere, and the atomic structure of the GaNs of the copper will go back to its normality. In the normal condition, it's like you blow air into it and you make a fluff of it. In this condition, you added hydrogen in a magnetic condition in between the atoms of the copper, and that's what you're going to get. But it's not as good as the, what do you call it, powderish material which I use, because I know this technique.
Okay.
Because now you have a powderness, fluffiness, but you have hydrogen now in the middle, not increasing the magnetic gravitational field of copper oxide in respect to each other. It's a different process. That's why you have like a different formation on your copper oxide.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah. I've done a lot of these tests. I still have some of it. It will be very interesting. Put these strips you made and take them into what do you call it? Put them in like a Coca-Cola bottle. If you made it in a Coca-Cola bottle, I showed it to, I think, Marco a few weeks ago. And take it into the outside on the grass. And leave it on the ground and measure its energy absorption from the ground. And move it up about a meter and measure its energy absorption again. You'll find out that when it's near the ground, it absorbs much more energy, shows a much higher voltage. And when it's up in the air, it shows less voltage, depending if you're in the shadow or in the sun. This technology is the backbone of the Keshe Power Cell. That's why we registered the company. That during the night time, because there is no magnetic gravitational field force from the sun, most of the magnetic gravitational field force of the Earth can emit out naturally. They're not forced down onto the ground and below the ground level. So the radiation comes out further, the plasmatic magnetic field of the Earth, and gets absorbed by this powderish layer. And you can convert this to what we call the day and night cell, power cell. So when we said that you can have 3 times more energy at night time than the daytime, everyone says, this is exactly the reason for it. Because at night time you absorb all the energy which is coming up from the Earth. So with this technique, what you've done, if you can make about 20,000-30,000 little strips like this, you can produce yourself about 3 to 4 kilowatts of energy every night. More at night when you need it, and the daytime when you don't need it, you put it in front of the sun, it does the same thing. This is the backbone of the, what I call Keshe Power Cell, day and night power cell. Now that we open our books, everything is there. You can go and do it yourself.
They're doing it a very much clunkier caveman way than the more elegant way that you just described. They're essentially making a diode type circuit that will operate.
No, don't make a diode. You use the space gaps. They become your capacitors. Let's learn something maybe in a very, very, very deep way. Our body is made of GaNs. And when we lie on the floor, on the ground, we feel very good because we still got these space gaps and still in the plasma conditions as GaNs. We get what we need from the ground. When you sleep between the sheets and the mattresses and all these springs, you don't receive anything. That's why you go to sleep tired, you wake up tired, because the body has to do most of the repairs on itself. If you can make different beds of charcoal and different minerals or flat, and you could sleep in different one in every night, you will find out you have a totally different behavior. Because our body is made of GaNs full of holes and gaps. So what we absorb, like these sheets or the copper oxide layer you showed, absorbs what it needs. If you're ever depressed, take your shoes off and walk barefoot on the grass or in the garden. Just a few minutes a day for a few weeks. Then you will see what happens. You absorb, walk at night time, not daytime. Daytime there is not much field because the magnetic field of strength of the sun is very strong. It depresses and pushes the mineral, what they call the fields on the ground. And this has a lot of this. Even why explains human race. Some of us have become root eaters. The root eating habit of the man, and the roots we eat, is due to the fact in northern hemisphere there is less light, and especially the further north we go. So most of the energy stays on the ground. So it gets absorbed by the roots, and we eat them. There is a lot of understanding. When you understand this process, you can go back to the nature. In a more warmer and so different climates, the stem of the wheat will take more what it needs and it doesn't have much root to take from the ground. The maturity comes different. It's like the apple and the berries. The process you've done, if you understand the full implication of it, you understand a lot about the creation or life support on this planet. Next question.
Dr. Kesh, I have a few questions. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can always hear you.
Oh, all right. Like John, I also did sun gazing. I still do it, and I was taught that in addition to that, that you need to walk on certain types of sand to absorb the fields, and then that will increase your mental well-being, and you will stop eating less food and sleep less, etc. So that's what I started
but
doing.
when you
I've been
walk
doing
on
that
the
for a while.
sand, no. Understand what you're doing. According to my understanding, when you walk on the sand, you massage different organs in your body because they all have a connection to your toes and the foot. That's a different process. When you walk on the grass or a soft ground or near the sea, you, especially at night, that's the absorption. You absorb certain amount from the ground when you're walking on the sand, on the even the stones. They call cobblestones, they call it in English, because that is a different process of massage, which, as most of the organs, if you are very familiar with the connection between the neurosystem of the foot and different organs of the body. Don't mix the two together.
Okay. Also, I have a friend who can meditate, and when he does it, he leaves his physical body sitting there, and he leaves and he looks like a ghost, and he goes and travels. Can you explain to me what he's doing?
This is a lot of. I prefer not to make a comment. I'll explain this to you. I attended a conference last Saturday for about an hour and a half. When I got into the meeting, there were a bunch of about 10, 12 scientists and doctors and whatever. And one of the scientists was claiming that he can jump, he can meditate, and he can jump. And he has shown it that he can jump like a frog and turn around and pad. And I explained to him what you're doing. He said, I can levitate, I can, do this. I said, you don't levitate. What you're doing is a jump frog. And I explained to him exactly when you sit and meditate, you increase the charges or you hold charges in the physical part of the body, not the emotional part. And when it gets to a saturation point, there is a spot in the back of your neck which controls the release of the information or energy or whatever to your muscles. And you find these guys won't jump like with two legs. They have to be folded legs. So much energy is released into the leg which cannot go anywhere, and the muscles of the foot push and you create a jump. So this is not levitation. The people who talk about this leaving their body is of the same state. It's just you got to understand which part of the body they use to do it. If you concentrate your energy into the emotional, which is the center part, you get that feeling that you're out of the body, but that's the rest of it. That's how I call it kakahu, because we understand the process now.
Also, what about people who can bilocate? They literally just disappear and reappear somewhere else. They can disappear and reappear
somewhere else. Show me one.
Else.
I want to know one. I've heard a lot of these people, but show me one.
I'm trying to get my friend on next week. His schedule's real busy, and he has lots of pictures I can show you of him doing it. He'll teach you.
Yeah, but that can be explained. A lot of these things can be explained if you understand the creation and the creation of the information within the physical part and the emotional part. And there are people who can sit in front of you and they disappear. But in fact, they don't disappear. They are still there. They create a gravitational magnetic field within 2 layers of the brain, which the fields within the cells of the body go into neutral in respect to the environment they are in. I've seen this, I understand it, but we do the same thing in the space reactors. We'll show it later on in the future by the knowledge seekers. If you can create gravitational magnetic field within the structure which is equal to its environment, You don't need to move, you just become part of it, so there is no friction. The only way we appear to be what we are and the colors we are is because of the plasmatic gravitational GANS state of our body, which absorbs some things and doesn't absorb other parts, but it can stay in the what do you call it, in condition of the GANS. So you can sit in front of me and I don't see if you know which part of the brain to use. That's to do with the material part and has to do with which layer of the body you have used to, after what do you call it, the brain you have used to. You don't need to disappear the whole body. You can use the skin part control of the body. When the skin is in balance, you don't need that much energy for the rest not to be seen. This is a physical information and energy transfer. It's well understood. I can explain to you step by step of it.
Yeah, I need some help on how to control mine.
I think half of the people in the universe would like to do that.
Well, I can access the field. I just don't know what to do with it or how to use it.
Good luck to you. Next question. Is there any other questions? We are disconnected again?
No.
Are we dislocated?
We're up to what's it been? 2 hours and 48 minutes.
Yeah, can I say something, because I just made some notes while Marek was doing talking. In respect to our medical side, I've written a paper sometimes ago. I can't find it. God knows where it could be. I wrote it as a. What did I write? What did I write? And you lot say cannot be bacterias and viruses. And they say I wrote it as a microbes, and they say no. Yeah, and they say it should be bacteria. In the yes, he's our biologist here. He's telling me. So I have to change the title of the paper, but because I couldn't find it, I just wrote a couple of pages on it yesterday to go with, or the day before, to go with the Fukushima paper, because it's important. The difference between microorganisms and viruses. And in fact, one of the reasons that world of medicine could never find a solution, you have to wait till the virus does its work and goes, is that viruses are single atomic GANs of the matters in a different state, and that's why they need time to what do you call it, to do their job. And I've written in this paper, if the pharmaceutical understood the structure of the GANs as a fourth state of matter, very soon they should be able to produce materials which like antibiotics, because they are made of GANs, very much like the what we did with Fukushima, by introducing a specific kind of radioactive material or salt condition in the body. They can convert the viruses, which are like radioactive materials. That's why they are so horrendously dangerous, because they release a lot of fields. They can convert these ganses to GANs of the matter state, not the GANs of cancer state, to radiate. Then the viruses can be brought under control within a matter of seconds. So
let me put it on live stream too here, sorry. The question goes, how can your technology be used by farmers and food transporters? So if there was, for example, I'm thinking with viruses.
You see, you got to go back a step forward. We use microwaves nowadays to mature fruits when we need it, or irradiate them to keep them away from microbes. If you can understand the process, you can do it in a very much simpler way without any side effects, using the combination. You have to go back to the essence of creation: salts, radiation, and the conversion, transmutation. Life on this planet would have not been possible if there were no salts and there were no what they call hydrogen or oxygen. And the process has fed itself in one to another. But viruses are totally GANs-based, atomic or molecular GANs, because don't forget, when we say a molecule of, let's say, CO2 in the GANs state, is not 1 copper and 2 oxygens or 1 copper and 1 oxygen. Copper oxide. Yeah? What you have is one sphere which contains the gravitational magnetic field strength of the two. So that becomes, and that's why you see a sphere of the green. And what he absorbs, what it releases, appears as one. So when you speak of molecular GANs, don't think the way you do in a matter state of you have a carbon connected double bond and single bond and what do you call it, hydrogen and the rest are oxygen. Is the totality of the field mass weight, mass which decides the matter. If you understand this in a very simple way, then traveling into space to another destination becomes very easy. You have to replicate the gravitational magnetic fields of the content mass of the matter in that destination, because nowhere in the universe is the same. You cannot try, you can't go to uncle's house when you want to go to auntie's house. You always go to the uncle's house because it's on the GPS. And this is how you destination point your travels in space. There's always a slight difference, and that's where you're going to end up. Next question. So, but just tell you that the viruses are actually the GANs of material. Now we understand the GANs. Carry on.
Okay, along the lines of trips and changing of location, there was a question: how can we support you with your trip and situation next week to Belgium? Are you actually going to Belgium, or how can people support that?
If I don't go, they're going to issue a warrant for arrest. If I go, we are prepared to be executed by accident. It happens. This gentleman has been trying to kill me 3 times. Now he's been put in a position. At 10 in front, I will tell you, come to the front of the police station in Kortrijk and do mass riot. Doesn't work that way. The King of Belgium has paid all his wealth supporting for this to be done. It's no use for a revolution, no use for through that. We have to do it according to what we understand. And the next step tomorrow, we will see what we can do. That's why we want the workshop. Someone somewhere has to issue a warrant for the arrest of Mr. Delannoy. He has killed. You see what happened? His position is he's in charge of murders in Belgium. He organizes the murders, then he investigates it himself. So there is never anybody there to be found. This is the whole key to the whole structure. Mr. Delannoy is always busy with murders. And now in this case, because he's trying to get hold of me, he's traveled to Holland. He's traveled all over the place. He's threatened everybody. He has interviewed who's been helped by Keshe Foundation. They're going to go to prison. People panic, so they give him all the bullshit he wants, and he's making a dossier out of it. And this is the plan. This guy has... Go to Willie, who supported us with the medical. He's threatened him that he's going to send him a summons, he's going to go to prison. He has threatened. All the thing he's done is by threat. We have to handle him the correct way, but these are murderers. They have no problem. They're a bunch of pedophiles which have found the structure to do their job. If you do not do, why do you do such a things? I do not know. I don't have a solution for it. We don't go to court. We don't go to the police station and court in Kortrijk. They issue the warrant, and they have to go through the whole process of the imprisoning in Italy, which they have already organized. Don't forget the Queen of Belgium, ex-Queen of Belgium, is Italian. They were here 2 weeks ago. We are monitoring all their movement, not us, but the federal police within the Belgian police are fed up with these murders. They are the ones who brought these things to us. We didn't go to, actually, Mr. Delano unknowingly brought one of the most perfect officers to us. He said, this guy is criminal. They are doing, what happened, he's in charge of the murders which he organized himself, so it's been organized as a perfect murder. He's carrying out perfect murders of scientists. I don't know how to stop it. Somebody has to stop this process. How?
If you think of something that your supporters can help out with, I know that there's many organizations.
I explained something in a very simple way to Ivan yesterday. We have given a lot of hints. I have given a lot of indication, my purpose and our purpose here. Tomorrow we'll open the box. Let us do our job our way, not the way they want to do. All this knowledge you are receiving, all this unraveling of the science and at the same time correct conduct of behavior has a reason. The ones who are wise have understood what's our position and what it is. The ones who haven't, we make it clear. If you read my papers, if you read the World Peace Message, if you listen to everything which has been said in past few months and years, you know who we are and what's our position. We make it very clear tomorrow. Then we stand our own ground. Technology like this doesn't go in the hand of one pedophile. And we don't ask for revolution and evolution and uprising. No, this is not the way. We come here to bring peace. And we do it our way, the peaceful way. The way it has to be done through the science and technology and correctness of the belief. We'll listen tomorrow, and if you know anyone, ask them to listen tomorrow. Tomorrow you will have something which is going to shock behind humanity. But we have to do it that way. Today is knowledge seekers' time. Tomorrow is the end of our job. Next question.
Well, thank you for that. For sure, our best wishes and prayers from all sectors will be with you, at least.
We will release because my life stays public, has to be that way. Tomorrow we'll release the copies of these warrants that you understand is not a joke. And the fraud behind it. And all signed by Mr. Delanois personally. But don't forget the situation with Mr. Delano was exposed in the court, to the court of Belgium 2 years ago, and they threatened my lawyers, so he withdrew. They just go around and they threaten people with their wives, their children, closing of their businesses. That's what they did with the Keshe Foundation webmaster. He just walked into his office and threatened him 2 weeks ago. And that's why before today, before the program, I asked Mr. Chu to take over the Keshe. Beyond the boundaries of Belgium, these people are nothing. As Professor Shishi of Ghent University, I was explaining to people here, said to me and Dirk a few years ago in Waterloo, he said Belgium structural politicians is a bunch of, what do you call it, pedophiles and incest. You got to understand how the nation operates. According to the group which is in Ronse in Belgium, child abuse, reported child abuse, according to police file, it stands at 28% or so. That's incest within today, 21st century. That's what is reported. It's part of the culture of the nation. That's why nobody can trap. I have a very big request. I heard, but the man has to do what he says. His Eminence from the Holy See, the Pope has said last week that they're going to put an end to all these pedophile cases around. Why is the main priest of Belgium hiding in a church which is accused of pedophile? Why? I think the Holy See has a lot to answer to why the house of God is used to protect the pedophile. That's a weak question to answer. Everywhere else in the world, in America, everywhere else, pedophiles have been put on trial. In Belgium, House of God has become refuge for pedophiles. I wonder when they capture the king, what he does. He goes in the church, he says, I'm in the fire, in the church. House of God should be where the man find peace, not when criminals find refuge. Next question.
Yes, Mr. Keshe, this is Lucian again. You was touching a very important subject before going into these things.
Sorry,
and
it's
you
just that
stated
the way Rick asked me, what can we do? We will tell you our position tomorrow.
No, I was referring to the most important thing is you was explaining that the GANs for molecules, as a matter of fact, they don't have the regular bonds as in the regular
No, it's
chemistry.
an energy package. It's a magnetic gravitational package, which when it comes into a specific condition, it changes to matter and it comes to copper and oxygen. If you look at the structure of, because it's very easy to see, just go on the internet, look at the structure of the upper atmosphere of Saturn. You see hexagonal shapes. I have explained this in book number 4. I said this before, but I don't get a chance to print it or get it published. These layers are the first layers which are absorbed from the environment of the solar system. They come as energy pack. Because of the gravitational magnetic fields of the Saturn being so big and so far, they change to the GANs of that matter, which is helium. And exactly the structure we have on the floor with the 3 reactors and 1 reactor. And if you add another 3 reactors further up, we create a nano layering, 3 layering. On top of, if you stand on top of the roof of the Keshe Foundation lab, you should see hexagonal formation. We made the lower base reactors. We put 1 in the center. If we put 3 more in a slightly 120 degree in between the other 120 degrees, what you will see above when you look, you see hexagonal shapes. This is where the gravitational magnetic field of gas or GANs converts into a physical, because now it has a magnetic field of the, let's say, the Saturn to interact with. And we always say, when the 2 fields interact, they create light. The interaction of the gravitational magnetic field, the strength of inside the helium, with the gravitational magnetic field of the Saturn in such a high distance, such a far distance, allows the manifestation and show of the GANs of the helium. And then there are different, as heliums are getting attracted further into the center of the Saturn, they are still staying in the GANs, but they change. It's just layering. And the interaction of minimum 3 creates the hexagonal shape of the cloud. So as they go further, due to processes which are within the Saturn, can be mainly gravitational, partially in the Earth atmosphere is due to the nitrogen in the upper layer, the energy released converts the GANs into matter. That's why you get the rain and you get the nitrogen. Nitrogen as a product is the way it is structured. It changes the GANs into a gas. Yes.
So coming to the experiments that the knowledge seekers showed us, and based on what you said a few moments ago, that from the electrodes will fall hydrogen GANs, copper oxide GANs, copper GANs.
Let me give you a tip. We already have hydrogen GANs in our hand. This is a major news if you understand it. We have already hydrogen GANs, which is the essence of the communication and creation in this universe. It was produced in past few days. This is a huge breakthrough.
Right. So in these tanks, you will have a mixture of this. And what's going to happen next? If you can leave there as there are, or you can, how to say, manipulate them, or I don't know how to phrase it.
Oh,
to use
there are
it in
different
certain
ways.
ways.
You gotta. It goes back to the environment you create. You can create again within the environment of the GANs to influence the fields of it. You can make a GANs radioactive. It's very easy. If you create the right gravitational magnetic field, you can create a GANs to be radioactive. What does radioactive means? It means trying to release part of its energy. So when it releases part of gravitational magnetic field energy, it goes through this stability the same as the nuclear decay. But that is a very, very, very different game. That's a very different game and different proposition. It happens in part of the universe. It happens between inter-universal layers. When one universe has different composition, all the universes don't have the same composition of the fields. So the fields, it's like when the Earth gravitational magnetic field interacts with the sun, we have it at our purpose when we get nitrogen. This happens only in the universal condition, when you have interaction between universes. Because the field strength is very much similar but different way, and then you get the conversion of the atoms, like a hydrogen from one universe. Even we call it hydrogen in another universe, but it has a different dimensional strength capacity. So this happens in there. So when you have a copper oxide, or let's say hydrogen oxide, hydrogen GANs. Hydrogen GANs in all the universes are the same. But when they go through one to another, they absorb different energies because in that universe they have to stay as a base matter. I explained this in the papers to be published.
And the last question will be about safety. A lot of people will start to... No, I'm saying the question will come. A lot of people will start to obtain these GANs, whatever will be copper oxide or zinc oxide or whatever. So these quantities are going to quite accumulate, so probably they cannot be just dumped. How will be the safest way to destroy them? Or to...
I read you something because knowledge seekers brought it to my attention. The paper I've written about what I call microbes and viruses are going to become to bacteria and viruses. The paragraph one before the last reads as follows. These viruses entities can be produced in space as much as on Earth, as we do in the laboratory of the Space Institute. Yeah? And what this means, we are producing gases, and we have to be careful with it.
Right, the copper oxide is toxic for the human body.
No, copper oxide in GANs state is not toxic. You'll be amazed what you can do with copper oxide in the GANs state. It's not a matter state. Matter, yes. GANs, no.
Should I understand that it's safe to just dump it into the garbage or into the regular disposal system? Public
do you dump sun in the garbage? These gases are literally like a solar system full of energy. Balance energy. If what we are doing next week when the knowledge seekers come back, and if I'm still here, we are going to grow GANs, seeds, using these GANs. The next step of use, we showed you how to make it. We showed you how to convert it. Now we're going to show you how to use it and what it can be applied for. The same thing happened. I said that to one of the scientists we were discussing very recently. It's in the paper of the Fukushima paper, it's written. In Fukushima, when we change the gases, the matters of cesium to gases of cesium, these gases now become a fertilizer, stable fertilizer. Because we've done this test 3 years now in Belgium. A guy called Guy, who a lot of people know him in Keshe Foundation in Belgium. He's a specialist in this thing. He's run a trial now for us over 2 years in regarding the seed growth. He's videoed everything, pictured everything. Now the gases of cesium in these lands become the source of energy for growing beautiful vegetables without use for fertilizer. But the next step with it is, because we added the GANs, and if you can remember how you used the CO2 in the boxes, the land of Fukushima produces protein just off the ground. You don't need to have an animal. Underground, if you can do the separation, the way we done in the lab, you can just go and harvest fat and protein without the animal. This test will be done in the 5th of May experiment, which is set up. This is what we are doing in the lab. This is how I set the things up. The 848 block is just producing totally continuously fat. So we understood the structure. We don't need the animals to create the proteins. And I was talking with Jorge yesterday that if you use, he's saying that if you use different composition of salts, we can produce different kind of fats and different things. And I said, and then if you look at the 3 different systems we're running, there are the 3 different kind of fat and thickness and composition. Now you can produce the fat of a vegetable, a fat of a meat, or a fat of whatever you like, literally from the land. You don't need the animal conversion. This technology, because it's understood the concept of creation, this is why we use it in the space. In the space we use, and I kept on telling people, it's like people waiting for 2 mobile phones to drip with food. Now they understand the process. The next process you will understand, by people breathing in the aircraft, by absorbing the CO2 is not a problem. The CO2 used allows the conversion and the production of the oxygen, nitrogen, and a carbon, which is needed for amino acid to feed the people. The way the plants convert the CO2 to oxygen, we say we need the plants. The breathing, what you breathe out as a CO2, which is a conversion system, that can be used to produce the food that you need in the space, because you need protein. We give it to you because you have a stomach system. This is what I announced about a year ago. If you go to the original papers or original talks, we always said in the space we will not carry any food, because the human race breathing, the more you breathe, the more you can eat. That's it. So you go for a run, you can have more fat, because you put it through the same salt proposition and you create amino acids or what you need as protein. And the salt content does exactly the same as what we do on Earth. It's in the Fukushima paper. We try to get the other guy, repeat it again and again. If you understand that, now you understand why you have meat on the land and in the sea, and why you have protein where there is a softer salt, which creates you the protein of wheat or vegetables. It's the salt content which decides the protein, or whatever you call it. You don't need to create or grow corn to have the energy for it. You can just collect fat off the ground and burn it. The oil we dig out, you can produce on the surface and take what you like to run your cars. The game of space and energy has changed. It's for people to understand gradually, otherwise I become a magician. When more and more people understand, it becomes part of the natural process of life. This is what I told you. I'm the beginning, I'm the end. We explain everything that you can understand collectively, but not by individuals that they can make gold and become Archimedes. Now everybody can make gold, everybody can make enough food. What else do you need?
On that note, I think
The only thing is to use it for the peaceful purposes.
Right. That's a good note. I think that we should probably end things now. It's been over 3 hours, so if that's
We meet tomorrow at 8 o'clock.
Right, same time, same place.
Same
tomorrow.
time, same place. Yeah.
Okay.
And if you want to see, how criminals operate, you will see the documents from the police of Belgium tomorrow.
Great.
This is how they organize themselves.
Thank you, Mr. Cash.
So
If
we
you
did
can
that.
if
Okay,
you can
thank
think
you
of
very
any,
much. Thank you for the day.
if you can think of any ways that people
Thank
can
you.
help
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Cash.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you to all
Bye-bye.
seekers.
Bye.
Okay, that's the end of our seventh Knowledge Seekers workshop, and we'll be getting together tomorrow night. That'll be Friday, April 18th at 8 a.m. European time, which is 11 p.m. on today, Thursday, April 17th. Today for me. 11 p.m. Pacific time. So come back again if you'd like to see the sequel to this story. Okay, bye for now.
Well, that was a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm stopped recording here, so I see Ludmill's already put it in. I'm going to end the live stream. End the GoToMeeting. Thank you to everybody for attending, and we will have another one open tomorrow. I would like to, I'm going to try to schedule the meeting so that we can have maybe more people come in. We had a total of 10 people in the GoToMeeting today. So
what's the max on GoToMeeting?
26. So 24. Okay, so I'll end it now so I can get the video encoding, and we will see you tomorrow.
Good night, guys.
Okay.